Here are some of the many things we don't know about the psychedelic puppets. Who are they? Trying to answer this in any meaningful way is hampered by the fact that outside of being able to see them and hear them, the puppets leave absolutely no footprint. They are something marvelous and mysterious, glittering, shimmering, shedding light of many colors, movement, sound, a transformative hierophany of integrated perception, as Terence McKenna would say. The complex wave of the angel peacock, iridescent, transformative mystery. Yet the chemical makeup of their bodies is unknown. They emit no waste, no gas, no radiation. Assuming that the puppets communicate with each other, they do so without detection. The air between the puppets is untroubled by sonic emission or light waves. Are they scientists or tourists? If they're scientists, they don't seem to ask a lot of questions. Why are they here? And where did they come from? The world's most decorated scientists remain dumbfounded. The most plausible theory was put forth, controversially, by a poet. The Irish poet John O'Donoghue, channeling philosopher Alain de Botton, explains, "What you need to understand is that the puppets are from a place beyond the literal grid," he mused. They represent a truth of a deeper sort. The puppets exist, but they do so metaphorically, he explained. They exist poetically. They exist subjectively. They exist paradoxically. And they exist narratively. And yet, astoundingly, here they are, visibly beheld. How to explain this? One theory, proposed by the mystical psychologist Carl Jung, is the concept of synchronicity. In synchronicity, the objective world and the narrative world touch. When this happens, we breach the chrysalis of limited perception and become privy to the mystery and the paradox that lies at the heart of the human condition, beyond the realms of our Newtonian and myopic absolutism and our hardened lack of imagination. It is here where the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics converges with quantum mechanics and gives rise to an account of reality that is inherently paradoxical, informed by consciousness, and therefore increasingly psychedelic. Perhaps the puppets didn't come from anywhere. Perhaps they've been here all along, waiting for us to notice them. The puppets are Schrodinger's cat in the box. They exist and don't exist at the same time. They laugh at death and they dance in quantum superposition, until they are observed or measured, that is. Behold the psychedelic puppets. You can see them. You can touch them. You can describe them empirically and objectively. And yet, that account will only constitute a kind of naive realism. The realism of hardened materialists, literalists, and reductionists, those stuck exclusively in the psychological poverty and existential dread of the objective world. Again, let us not sidestep the impossibly paradoxical quality of the psychedelic puppets. The puppets are made of material molecules that somehow give rise to direct experiences of such mystic rapture that baseline perception crumbles in a kind of ontological slapstick, with the puppets then emerging, giggling in reality's pixelating wake, with what in some circles is referred to as a shit-eating grin. They are, we think, the cosmic joke, the hitchhiker's guide to the galaxy. The scholar Richard Tarnas believes the puppets have a special relevance for the schism in the modern worldview between the meaning-seeking human subject and the meaning-voided objective world. They are here, it seems, help humans bridge these domains before it's too late. As we marvel at the puppets, we are blinded, absolved of all paradox. Their mere existence reconciles contradictions. As we behold the puppets, we have a direct experience of the numinous, bearing witness to two impossibly paradoxical yet increasingly self-evident propositions. Could consciousness be more primary than matter? The puppets think so. Is imagination more fundamental than atoms? Of course, they tell us. The puppets exceed the constraints of this dimension. They are a Neoplatonic allegory of the cave. We think they reside inside a kind of tesseract, perhaps in the fourth dimension, outside of time, like a motley crew of psychedelic prophets from the past, present, and future simultaneously. One way to think of them is as psychedelic tricksters, fictional characters famously camouflaged in children's fantasy stories. They are Willy Wonka. They are the Mad Hatter. They are the White Rabbit. They are creatures from Wonderland. They are totems of ontological uncertainty. They are the never-ending story. Our hypothesis is that they exist in the same way fiction exists. Like dreams, they do not lack reality. They are real patterns of information, ensorcelled into perception by our willingness to dream out loud, as Darwin's pharmacy author and ecodelic psychonaut Rich Doyle once prophesied. In fact, like great fiction, the psychedelic puppets are, in some sense, even more truthful than reality. Besides, they tell us, the word reality should always have quotation marks around it. But what does this even mean? We just don't know. But let's get back to what we do know. How do they communicate? T.S. Eliot once said, music, like poetry, should communicate before it is understood. And so too for the psychedelic puppets. They are here to teach and to reorient, they say. Your map of the world is wrong, they tell us. Where you have centered physics, you should actually place literature as the central metaphor to map reality. Truth, but no logic, is our motto, and it is as important as rational thought. We aren't after accuracy, they tell us. We are after poetry. The message. Where we're going, said the puppets, channeling futurist Mark Pesce, the simulated and the real are going to get really blurry, and we don't have the right tools of mind. You must take a look at cultures that describe the world magically, that understand that perception shapes what you are, and you shape what you see. You must embrace metaphorical literacy. You must become sophisticated rhapsodic poets, ecstatic technicians of the sacred, and you must sharpen your intuition. The puppets elaborated their discursive disclosure. In a world where anything you want is true, the only way to deal with this is by learning how to deal with your will. Dealing with will is what magic has, in all cultures, always been about. This is why we, the psychedelic puppets, don't go insane when the world just disappears. We're ready for it. With this, the puppets smiled, possessed by Terence McKenna, and they summarized. What we're talking about here is that humans must use their technological wizardry, their dazzling creativeness, as a means for the imagination to summon its own literalization. With science, you must explicate. With poetry, you must implicate, as Ursula Le Guin said. Think of us as a kind of theosophical epiphany, of language trying to bootstrap itself to towards realms of platonic perfection, which as organic beings you experience as love, said the puppets. Like jazz musicians, the puppets continued to riff and rhapsodize through a tumbling thicket of ideas with such a sharp and vital alacrity that it can take our breath away. Love, beauty, truth. These are the vectors of human becoming. They always have been. They always will be. And the technologies that open these paths for you are no more and no less powerful than the human beings that wield them. So this is an enterprise of integrity and millennial implication. And what lies as our goal is true humanness in sympathetic symbiosis with the planet. That is the challenge at the end of history. But how will we find you? The scientist said to the puppets. We might need more of your wisdom to solve this fucked up world. With this, the puppets turned, smiled, and offered a book of lyrics that brought tears to our eyes. And suddenly, they offered a riddle in song form. Make believe we're everywhere. We're hidden in the lines. And there upon the pages is the answer to our never-ending story. Rhymes that keep their secrets will unfold behind the clouds. And there upon the rainbow is the answer to your never-ending story.